Hi, I'm John Cerrito, and welcome to this hometown production special on community influencers. Once again, the community influencer we have today is Kevin Hill, Chief Executive Officer of the Hill Group. And Kevin, it's nice to have you always.
John, always a pleasure to be here and with you and the HTTV team.
Thanks, Kevin. And we've talked about so many topics, Kevin. A lot of them to really help the individual out there to move forward with different things. But now we decided to discuss about the individual that might be in one spot in his life or her life, professionally, personally. How do we move to the next level? How does that happen?
I think the first step in elevating or advancing oneself is to take an honest observation and an honest assessment of who you are and where you want to be. I think once that analysis has occurred, and once again in a very honest and candid fashion, you can then begin to identify the methods, the resources, the strategy that it will take to get to the next level.
Okay, so now I'm going to do a self-evaluation. What types of things am I going to be looking at?
You're going to be looking at the types of disciplines you'd like to be a part of. You're going to be looking at the educational requirements and curriculum needed to get there. You're also going to have to look at your personality, your characteristics, who you are. You're going to have to integrate all of these elements to determine where I want to be and how I want to get there. And it is important. And not only the self-evaluation, I think it's critically important to seek the advice of others you trust and rely on for their feedback and input, because that would be unbelievably important on your journey.
Well, Kevin, we're going to get into that a little later on, but you had mentioned something in our previous discussion, why it is important to do these self-evaluations. And I think what you were saying is that people start their career at one stage of life, and oftentimes 10 years, 5 years, whatever it may be, we're at different places, and we have different motivations at that point and different needs.
I think sometimes, and it's not always across the board, there are reasons that people stay in the same place. One could be complacency. The second, and we talk about this in all our shows, is fear of going to that next level. Obstacles, challenges. There are many reasons why people stay where they are. Also, in our minds, if our thought process is, this is good enough, this is safe, this is content, then that's where I'll stay. It is once I begin to say, no risk, no reward, I'm willing to put in the hard work, I'm willing to be diligent and do whatever it takes to achieve that next level, until you think about that, but then execute it, these things will never happen.
Kevin, what do you think the driving force is behind somebody wanting to move forward with their lives? You mentioned something. People get complacent. Is it out of need? Is it out of passion? What is the most important initiative or quality that somebody would have to move them forward?
I would say growth and development. I always personally want to grow as a human being, and that means culturally, professionally, personally, educationally. I want more. I have an insatiable appetite for growth. So that drives me. I also want to be a better human being. And to be a better human being, that takes commitment and dedication. So I think there are many reasons, but I think the driving force is growth and development and learning. As long as we live, we learn. And when we stop learning, then the game's called.
Well, you know, Kevin, it's interesting because in our travels in life here, and I have to tell you personally, I've met so many people who would think or say at the first reaction of an opportunity is that, you know what, I'm not qualified. I can't do that. And many sit back and don't move on because of it, but some do. And you know what I've noticed? Most of them end up raising their levels.
John, it is self-determination. It is, once again, it's attitude and perspective. It's, if you think this is, don't put a limit on what you can do, because that puts a limit on what you will do. And once again, we go to perspective and thought process. If I think I can do anything, I will do anything. Remember, things seem impossible until we do them.
Give us an example of something that was offered you, an opportunity, whether it was a speaking engagement, whether it was a job situation that came your way where you really went out of your comfort zone and stretched up and accomplished something.
Absolutely. My background is in running companies and organizations. But prior to getting to that level, I had spent time as a director, a manager, before getting to the level of chief operating officer, chief executive officer. So I always wanted it in my mind. But then when the opportunity came, oh boy, there was apprehension and fear. Can I really do this? But the point of the narrative is this. Those thoughts came about, but I didn't let them stop me from doing what I wanted to do. Yes, there were those challenges, but I said I can do this. So I did this. And there were days that were overwhelming, and there were days that were challenging, but I kept hanging in there, which is persistence. And I seemed to make better decisions, become more comfortable strategically. Interpersonal relationships within the organizations got better. I just trusted myself. And once again, and we've talked about this on prior shows, if you're not sure on what to do, talk to somebody else. Talk to somebody who's done this. Talk to someone who would encourage you. I think that's also an interesting point. If you surround yourself with people who encourage you and tell you nothing's impossible, you can do it, then you will do it. But if you surround yourself, if you let those negative thoughts permeate and you're around people, oh, don't try this, oh no, you can't, you're good where you are, then that's what you'll do. Pay attention to the voice that tells you you can do whatever you want to do.
Well, I think the example you just gave about yourself, Kevin, as you were in the position, you're constantly learning, but you're growing into the position. And that kind of translated out to all other relationships and all other things.
That's correct. There's no progress without struggle. And there's growth in uncomfortability. The question you have to ask yourself is, am I willing to tolerate those feelings? Can I tolerate not being sure? Can I tolerate being uncomfortable? Can I tolerate being in unfamiliar waters? That's the question. If you can tolerate those things, you can succeed. So it was, to me, yeah, there were some days I was like, oh boy, I didn't do what I was, but I kept hanging in there. We always talk on this show about hope. I kept hoping that if I hung in there, kept learning, kept growing, kept being the best I could be, that one day it'll all work out, and it did.
Well, let me ask you this. Once you got to that level, and again, we're talking about raising our level here, all right, and how we go about it and why it's important, which we will touch upon also. But once you raised your level, even in the midst of the fight of sustaining, you never really wanted to go back. your level, you stretched yourself already.
Correct. Going back was not an option for me. If you make it an option, it will become an option. My goal and my objective was to continue to move forward. My attitude and commitment to that objective was whatever it takes me to do to be successful, that's what I will do. There was no negotiation with that for me. That was the commitment. The road, the journey, the road was narrow. I was going to succeed. So I just kept hanging in there, and things got better once I stayed the course.
All right, so let's talk about, and I know we've touched upon this in every show, we're going to go back and touch upon it. It's
Okay.
an important feature to what we're trying to present out here. All right, there are so many, especially younger people, there are so, and this is not age capped. This is for people from 9 to 109. People get stuck, and they just don't know how to move forward. You know, whether they're, you know, in their 20s and, you know, they're anxiety ridden, you know, lack of confidence, but yet have ability. How do we get them? You talked about mentoring. How do we get them to get to mentoring? How do we reach those people?
In order to keep what you have to give it away. So if there's an individual that I see that has potential and there's some obstacles in the way, my job, my responsibility to that human being is to help them to get there. And that is through mentoring, that is through dialogue, that is through conversation, that is through encouragement. So there are a multitude of ways to help that person get there. But remember, no matter what you do as a mentor, that person has to want to receive that. That's the key. If somebody comes to me and tells me, I'd like to go to the next level, I'd like to grow, I'd like to develop, it has to be more than a verbal commitment. You have to make that commitment with every fiber in your body. Once you have that, then you'll have the ability to help that individual. They also have to be willing to accept constructive criticism. It's not knocking them down, it's building them up and showing them if you overcome certain things, this will allow you to achieve the things you want. So there are several iterations of how you get somebody to the next level. But most importantly, they've got to be open to what you have to give.
All right, Kevin, so let's talk about connections, okay? Now, I'm not talking about personal connection. I'm talking about connecting personally. You know, that you're in conversation, you're the mentor, all right? And the individual who's seeking the help, you know, they want to feel that you care. They want to know that you're a listener, that, you know, expand on that.
I would say the key element to the mentor-mentee relationship is trust, but you have to build trust. So let's take this person that you're talking about who wants to grow, the mentee. You set up meetings with that person. That's number one. You're always there. You're always on time. That person knows now they can count on you. You listen to that person objectively, and they start to feel comfortable in sharing details about themselves with you, which now gives you the ammunition to want to help them because they've got to understand what's holding them back as well. If you don't mind, I have a young man, American Express guy in Texas, and somebody introduced him to me, and he has what we call the mentee mentor sessions. And he's in Texas now. We still, every time he says, do you have time for me? Can you talk to me about this and that? And absolutely I do. So now he trusts me. He can count on me. He's received the feedback I've given him constructively. Now we have the basis and foundation for a great relationship, and I can help this person because he knows I'm not trying to tear him down. I'm giving him advice based on my experience, based on my observations, based on what I'm hearing from him. That allows him to grow, and he receives it internally, which allows him to grow.
You know, you and I were talking one time about the high profile individuals we were talking about and what made them special. You know, they made you feel a certain way. They made you feel you're the most important person in the room. You know, how do you go about that? I mean, you know, is that something you can just turn on and turn off, or is there certain qualities to a personality that has that?
I think that, and I remember that conversation vividly, I think there are some people who are born with those qualities, and then I think there are some people who have to develop them. But let's talk about that for a minute. I'll give you my experience. When I'm with an individual, I want them to know I'm present with them. I'm listening to them. I'm not waiting for them to stop talking so I can start talking. I'm listening to them. I'm processing what they're telling me. If I have questions or comments, I will ask them to demonstrate my interest in them. I'll give them as much time as they need. Also, I think sometimes people say to you, and I'm sure you've heard it, I've got a question, I hope it's not silly. There's no silly question. So I think making people feel special is about making them feel comfortable and thinking about them. We had a conversation recently about that. I'm a big note writer. So if you and I have a conversation, I send you a note. Enjoyed spending time with you. Can't wait till the next time. And it's a handwritten note. So you know I took the time to care about you. And I would hope things like that resonate with people. It doesn't even have to be an occasion. I'm thinking of you because I want you to feel special and I want you to feel appreciated and I want you to know I care about you. So I think there are many ways, and also it's your behavior over time. That determines your reputation. So over the course of time, when this person feels comfortable knowing that you're there for them and they can be themselves, that when you get a person to be themselves, they can tell you anything. And that's how you go about helping them, because they can be honest and candid with you.
You know, Kevin, that brings me to leadership. And we talked about many different types of leadership. Can a leader be tough and likable, or struggle with personalities within an organization and still be effective?
Absolutely. There's a saying that says, command and compassion don't mix. I don't agree with that. I think you can be fair. I think you can be direct. I think you can be honest and candid with your people, but also be supportive, also be caring, also be accessible and available. I think that makes you a good listener. And we always talk about a good leader. What makes you a great leader is your ability to listen to other people, your ability. Leaders define reality. We said that Napoleon quote. Leaders define reality and then give hope. If you can do those things, the great Jack Welch from GE, business is not about products and services. Business is about people. The great Henry Ford, coming together is a start, staying together is progress, working together, that's success. It's always about people. And I think there are different types of leaders. And, you know, it's unfortunate to say everyone in the leadership position is not a leader. And that's unfortunate, but it happens in some organizations. But when you get a leader whose style may be maybe different from what you're used to, and there's all types of leaders, democratic, autocratic, demanding, transitional, transformational. You have all types of leaders. But the basic combination, the basic trait to a great leader is he cares about his people. And as long as that comes through and resonates with the workforce, he'll be all right.
So the commonality is the fact that he has a caring, and the employees feel that.
Correct.
The people in the organization feel that. The people on the team feel that.
Yes.
We see the upheaval that's happening right now. You and I talked a little bit about our local football team here in Florham Park.
Right.
In the middle of the season, having such an upheaval because there is a lack of leadership that brings people together.
Right.
Kevin, today, you know, we talk about some of the opportunities of building relationships. Talk about the individual getting involved in different organizations, doing things that would network and develop relationships.
Well, as you know, I'm a huge proponent of this. I've sat on many boards. I've chaired many boards. I give speeches all over the state. But through these activities, I get to meet a great amount of people, from entry-level staff to middle management to the C-suite and leadership team. So I get feedback and perspectives from a multitude of people. I get to meet and talk to people, and I take just as much time in talking to the entry-level person as I do to the CEO. And let me give you a quick example. I was talking to Amanda Olson about this. One organization I worked for, I would come in every day and say hello to the staff every morning. Good morning, everyone. And they would look at me like I had three heads. So what was I doing? Did I do something wrong? So I consulted one of my colleagues, and this is what he said to me. I'll never forget it. He said, they're not used to someone at your level saying good morning to them. I was unbelievably shocked because they're human beings. Just your job doesn't, and job responsibilities don't stop you from being a human being. And I was just really taken aback by that. But what I did, that made me speak to them even more. And once again, we're uncomfortable with things not just that aren't good for us, but are. Here I am trying to be nice, but it was uncomfortable for them because it was different. But I made a concerted effort to speak to them, to talk with them, to take a moment, to write notes, telling them how much I appreciated what they did. You would thought I gave them the Hope Diamond, because people want to feel valued and appreciated. And that, to me, is the mantra of a good leader.
Okay, so contrary to your actions, all right, what holds other people at a higher level than these associates not saying good morning to them every day, not interacting with them? Why wouldn't they?
I think there are a variety of reasons. We sometimes assume that because someone's at a certain level that they have great interpersonal skills. Maybe they don't. Sometimes people feel elitist, that when they're at a certain level that maybe they shouldn't interact with other people like that. It's something I am 100 and totally against. I think sometimes people don't know how to articulate that. They're uncomfortable. So I think there are a variety of reasons. And, you know, not just those reasons. Sometimes it could be a good person who's just preoccupied, who is just has a million things on their mind and they don't. See, what we do, we have to prioritize in taking an organization to the next level. You have to prioritize what's important. For me, it's the people. So my efforts are always going to be geared to motivating, uplifting, elevating the people so they feel they can do anything and they're part of the team no matter what their job function is. That's me. Other people may see it different. It doesn't make them wrong. But strategically, to grow as an organization, your people have to grow.
Well, you know, in growing, Kevin, you know, there has to be a togetherness, as you've mentioned, a connectivity. Talk about celebration. Is it okay to celebrate when you achieve something internally? To maybe develop a little bit of, again, confidence, swagger. It's important to have celebration.
Acknowledging one's achievement is healthy, is progressive, and I think, remember, lack of confidence is contagious, but confidence is also contagious as well. So if I exude confidence, and let me tell you, I've been in situations where I wasn't sure what to do all the time, but I didn't act that way. Because if I'm not confident in me, how are you going to be confident in me? So celebrating your accomplishments, celebrating the accomplishments of others, celebrating the organization's accomplishments is a great thing because it demonstrates and shows appreciation to those who've arrived at these places, but it also shows them that sky is the limit. You've done this. What you do in this moment prepares you for the next moment.
And you keep growing.
Absolutely.
And you keep raising your level. Kevin, these last few minutes, why don't we tie this together? Why don't you talk again? Let's summarize, okay? We're talking about raising your level, you know, at some stage of life, whether you're just beginning out or, you know, you're up in your elderly years, there's no reason to stop growing.
Correct. I think you have to subscribe to a thesis, to a rationale, to a commitment that I'm going to be better. And no matter what stage of life I am, and also if I face obstacles, I will find a way to overcome them. Whether it's through personal commitment, whether it's seeking the advice and counsel of others, whether it is through research, whatever it takes to get there. And I will never stop growing. I will also take feedback from a variety of individuals. They don't always have to be at the top of the corporate ladder. I can get advice from a custodian. I could get advice from a police officer. I could get advice from a school teacher. I could get advice from anybody. Am I going to be willing and open to take that advice? That is the key. But the foundation and the commitment is evolution, that I continue to grow. It is about dedicating. I keep saying, you have to dedicate and commit yourself to this path and this journey. And if you stay on that path and you stay on that journey, anything is possible.
And another thing that I take away from our conversation here, Kevin, because you know you do talk about there will be obstacles.
Absolutely.
There'll be resistance, but you can't give in to the first form of an obstacle or resistance.
That is correct. If you look in history at anybody who's, whether it's winning an election, whether it's becoming a corporate leader, whether it's running a nonprofit, you talk to any of those individuals, a sports figure. He doesn't start in the major leagues. He starts at A and then double A and then triple A. There's always going to be something. But if you make a commitment that no matter what I'm faced with, I will find a way to overcome that challenge, you will be a successful human being personally and professionally.
Great words of advice, Kevin Hill. Great words. And once again, I've enjoyed our session together. I look forward to our next Community Influencer Show, first quarter of next year. Kevin Hill, thank you so much for joining us.
John Cerruto, you are the best. It is always my pleasure.
Mine too,
All right.
Kevin. And thank you so much for joining this special with Kevin Hill, Community Influencer.